In his opening remarks, Bob Evans mentioned Randy Pausch, who one of his great legacies is the book, The Last Lecture. One of his other great legacies at Carnegie Mellon is the Entertainment Technology Center, which is a collaboration of the School of Computer Science and the College of Fine Arts. The next two companies that you're going to see are a product of the Entertainment Technology Center. The first is Simcoach Games, which is making behavioral change simple, interactive, and measurable. And its founder and CEO, Jess Trybus, is also special senior faculty at the Entertainment Technology Center. Jess?
Hi. So I was a grad student in the early 2000s studying under Randy Pausch, and we were taking a look to understand if games could be used for learning. Now, I feel like we all know that they can by now, but this was early 2000s. At the Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon, our students were graduating and going off to Electronic Arts and Activision and Disney. So we were training them, or we were being trained, to do interdisciplinary collaboration and rapid prototyping really well, and we were building games to go on to the entertainment industry. But I really wanted to understand if game design could be applied to good learning. And it turns out that good games parallel proven principles for how we learn best. These are structured frameworks for how we learn. Games can be systems designed to help us learn. So we looked at games, not just video games, but old games, non-digital games, such as chess and baseball, and a personal old favorite of Super Mario Brothers, games like that, where games have clear goals. They have clear feedback. In baseball, it might be immediate feedback, or end of the inning, or of course the ultimate scoreboard at the end of the game. You're being measured against who wins. Games are replayable, but the number one thing about good game design is that it puts the player at the heart of interacting with it. You have to make choices, and it's through many choices and consequence loops that you really learn well. So at Carnegie Mellon, we started to develop video games for learning, and when I graduated, I started a company called Etc. Edutainment, which we changed the name to Simcoach Games last year. And we've worked with large corporations to deliver video games for learning and behavior change. Corporations such as Honeywell and Westinghouse, Alcoa, US Steel. For those of you from Pittsburgh, Giant Eagle is a great client partner of ours, as well as University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC. Lots of games in safety training where if you make the wrong decision, you blow up on screen, so it's very impactful. The one in the middle is actually a game across of all of UPMC health system, primarily being played by 80 and 90-year-olds, focusing on driving critical skills to keep them out of the hospital. And we're seeing efficacy for a reduction in readmissions on that game. The next one is an example of how we're recruiting and training construction trade workers. We've lower corner done games on ethics, helping university students understand and practice ethics in a business setting. And the robot-looking one is with Honeywell and IARPA, which is the intelligence community funding arm that is having a look to see if our video game can increase IQ and improve fluid intelligence. So sort of a brain training game. One of the key factors that led to changing our names to Simcoach Games is that we've evolved our methodology and really our focus on what we're focusing on when we go to companies. So simple, interactive, and measurable is what the SIM part stands for. And when we go into companies, we don't look to just replace training. We are looking to focus on maybe 3 to 5 critical behaviors that will have a measurable impact on a problem. So I wanted to give you a brief demo of one of our products so I can show you what I mean by that. So I turn the sound down. Before I get started, this is a game for the retail industry. If you go into grocery stores, they may have 50, 90, 200 stores, tens of thousands of cashiers. You might not know this, but a cashier that stands up for an 8-hour shift lifts up to 14,000 pounds a shift. So that is scanning, reaching, lifting, twisting and lifting, 7,000 pounds across that scanner, another 7,000 pounds in the bag, causing companies to fork out $10 to $20 million a year in workers' comp claims due to these repetitive motion injuries. So we've developed a game here called Cashier Safety, and essentially cashiers play it. It's mobile-based. It's actually on tablets and iPads, where you identify different pieces of equipment in your workspace that contribute to you being safe or not. If your scanner is dirty, you're going to be scanning a can 3 or 4 times before the scanner picks it up. And you walk through some basic body mechanics. So the 5 core body mechanics are what we're focusing on that can be mapped back to the workers' comp issue. We know where the claims are, so we can know where the body mechanic problems are to focus on building a game around. So we introduce the learners to 1 or 2 concepts at a time. In this case, it would be reaching down the conveyor belt and how to grip a product, and then we force them to practice. So I have to practice that by choosing the right icon, and every once in a while it'll ask me again to make sure I'm paying attention. And then you see this element up at the top of pace. Cashiers are often measured on items per minute, of around 14 items per minute. And then it sort of scaffolds on more skills after you've practiced that. So lifting heavy objects and bags with 2 hands, stepping and turning instead of twisting to reduce the injury around your waist. So I'll skip ahead here to the last skill, which is stretching, which reduces fatigue. And it encourages you to stretch between customers. And after I do that, I sort of put the whole game together here, where I have to get through 3 orders, 3 customers before this clock runs out at a pace of about 13 or 14 items per minute, and without running out of what we're calling fatigue down below. And so if I do something wrong, my fatigue goes up, but it's the rate at which it goes up which is important. So if I do something wrong, such as carry that milk carton with 1 hand and twist instead of step and turn, my fatigue points go up faster. So I'll do that, step and turn, and deal with the item under the cart here, hand scanner, and my pace is okay. Stretch to reduce that fatigue, and then move to the next customer. So cashiers are using this as their training. It's distributed through a learning management system in some retailers, so they know if they pass the training. If they run out of fatigue and die or get hurt in this case, they have to replay it until they do it right. And that's all tracked as their training so that the managers understand if they really sort of comprehend and can reinforce these skills. And so this game in particular, when we first developed it, our first partner was Wegmans, and they used it across 12,000 cashiers, and in the first year reduced workers' comp claims by 34%, and in the second year it was nearly 60%. So just focusing on 5 body mechanics really targeted the big problem that they had. So part of our sort of secret sauce at the company is really our process. Another thing that we kind of spun out from Carnegie Mellon is understanding this interdisciplinary collaboration, rapid prototyping mindset. When we start a project or develop a product, we start with a design, we get the minimum requirements down, we don't spend a ton of time on it, we just focus on what's the key learning objective and what's the measurable outcome that the client partner or whatever the problem is we're trying to solve, and we really, really try to narrow that down. And then we start prototyping right away. I played hockey in college, and so I really like this analogy of dumping the puck and chasing. And so the idea is you don't have all the requirements. This is an agile approach. You need to dump the puck, and the team needs to chase it and start this cycling until you have some rhythm in front of the net, in this case. And so that prototype, you get up and running as quickly as possible. You play test as early and often as you can, and you keep that cyclical process with the client being part of the team. And you iterate 3 or 4 times depending on scope and budget. And you can do this in less and less and less time is what we found. And so as I look at our products in the last 10 years, the one on the left is a product that we did with Alcoa. It was a multiplayer, multi-language training simulation for loading dock workers across Alcoa globally. It cost them nearly $500,000 to develop with us. It took well over a year. The technology at the time, they needed special graphics cards on their computers. It was networked, but only locally. It was driven by the trainer at Alcoa that would have the training on their server, and that's how we sort of distributed and tracked how people were doing. And then a few years ago, when we developed the Cashier Safety game, that was a product that took 12 to 16 weeks. Now we were going mobile. It cost $125,000 to make. And as I look at where we are today and where we're going in the next few years, we're really looking at, can we get that iterative process and that product development for critical skills down to maybe less than $10,000 and maybe around 2 to 4 weeks of development time, and creating what we're calling the Simcoach Skill Arcade, where there's employees can choose different mini games and have achieved skills, which would then be tracked as badges or however you would track them. But then you can think about games approaching entire industries with a whole catalog of mini games. Would take just a few minutes for people to play, whether they're training or they're reinforcing skills that can be immediately applied on the job, and they can also acquire and leave the companies that they're at with those skills, and that be tracked on the Skills Arcade for individual employees. So that's Simcoach Games and in an overview, and I appreciate you listening.